Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
So, and being, I'd like to say I'm a gray-haired baby boomer, but I'm a no-hair baby boomer who's used to and when you're talking about this, John and Phil, about, just all the data you just rattled off in relation to building a master plan community, the anti-monotony, how you're figuring out which houses are going where, having been associated with the paper that's involved in that, and the Excels that are involved with that are siloed in somebody's computer, and then how all of a sudden you're sharing that. I can see how that's absolutely transformative. I mean, huge. So when you were building your company, and I'm not sure if you started with RPG and the builder portal, and there was where the idea started to germinate, and working with the Wagners, but you're putting together this the EXO, or you're starting to create the platform. What were some of the biggest challenges you had as you were starting to put it together? Because you mentioned process, and I would assume you have to get everybody on the same process. And just knowing, working for builders in different divisions, even the divisions are different, especially if the builders are growing by acquisition, and now you're trying to put all these different companies together and they all have different processes. So explain just the transformation and the entrepreneurial journey of building EXO.
So EXO is called EXO because it's the marriage of experiential data and operational data.
Mhm.
We knew that the two buyers when we sell the EXO is typically your VP or SVP of land and your VP or director of marketing. And those two roles together are the ones that come together that we think make the magic in a master plan community, sort of kind of behind the curtain, right? So after infrastructure is laid and everything is there, these are the kind of two groupings that allow to create a best-in-class experience for the aspiring resident. However, to your exact point, there isn't standardization or uniform standard operating process, certainly across builders and certainly across developers. So one of the things that we did very early is we raised capital.
Mhm.
And we raised capital in our business because we knew we had to have deployable capital to be able to create the ability of having configurations or customizations in the product to answer the call of the different communities we served. Phil said it a moment ago without saying it. Our second client was Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, which was a very different way of doing things next to our public property group. And then our third client was Tavistock Development Company in Orlando.
Yeah.
So you got three very different models, all using the EXO, all requiring different sort of configuration settings to the product.
Yep.
And when we raised capital in the very beginning, it allowed us to sort of have some elasticity in the entrepreneurial journey to make investments in different parts of the product that allowed us to sort of scale, sell it, and be able to meet the need of the buyer.
Right.
Phil, anything else I missed on that?
I would just add, Carter, it's funny. I think most people think the hardest part of tech is the tech part. So you got guys in the background coding away. But what you talked about, process, is actually what John and I have found to be the most challenging with clients. And it's why we've invested, like, very different than a lot of tech companies where it's almost all R&D.
Yeah.
A lot of our investment of the capital that John's talking about has gone to the team that sits day to day with the client. So whether you're getting set up or it's support, right? Because Carter, like, you said it, you had like a sewing machine computer. A lot of our clients are like not that different.
Yeah.
Right. And they need somebody they can call who's here in the US, who knows what they're going through, speaks the same language, and can help them through. And sometimes that's as simple as, like, how do I reset a login? But sometimes it's a question as complicated as, hey, I have a Sherwin-Williams paint color that seems very similar to a Behr color, and I have a builder asking for a variance, and I'm wondering how the anti-monotony algorithm differentiates between those two things because I don't want to approve a house inappropriately. And that's part of what we do, right? And it's a very different model and specifically different for this industry, right? Like, that was something John and I knew from the very beginning. If you didn't have that, you weren't going to get the adoption. And I don't think anybody has ever done it quite that same way, and that we are a tech partner but also in many ways a process partner for our clients
Yeah.
as they evolve.
So I will say, Carter, the acronym that matters that's so new to our industry is SaaS, software as a service. Hear me out. Most tech entrepreneurs focus on software. Our focus is on service.
Yep.
And anyone that knows anything about SaaS and the ability to scale SaaS organizations, service as much or more important than the software itself. Here's a dirty secret.
Yeah.
Software is always broken.
Yeah.
It's always broken. And part of what you're trying to do is hire the best in-house engineers that are fixing the bugs, ensuring the product is working the right way. And you're always sort of chasing your tail. It's never perfect.
Yeah.
It's why Apple has iOS updates. It's why, even Amazon, their standard uptime of 99.7% is the same that is the industry standard, right? What I'm getting at is that you have to be in the position to understand that software is something that requires maturation and massage and this ability as it grows. But as you can imagine, the more users you have on the product, the more problems you have on the product,
Yeah.
right? Position yourself the right way. When you invest in a service culture, the problems don't sting as badly, right? You have the ability to ensure you're giving a level of success and commitment to your end users the right way. And today, the XO has almost 3,000 end users that log into the product every day across the country. These are builders, sales reps, architects, and developers that log into the product every day to get the most out of it. And, we have a team of customer success folks that are dedicated to that exact thing. We want you to feel successful in the product. We want there to be builder adoption. We want to make sure we're doing the right things.
Because some of these projects you mentioned, Sterling Ranch and Travis Dock, I mean, all of these projects, they're huge. And so we've got a big project. We're in our first phase. We're recording a final map. And so we go, hey, John, hey, Phil, I got this track map that I just recorded. How the hell do I get it in the computer? Right? And I'm being a little facetious, but somebody has to communicate that information to you. That has to get digitized, put into the system, and then we have to divvy up that phase between the builders and then start figuring out the anti-monotony rules and regs, and I'm sure you have algorithms that run that. What lots are available? What are they selling for? All of that kind of, which is just constant, ongoing. Are you also, you mentioned the two major components of VP of Land, VP of Sales, coming together. Are you also then putting in and are you getting as far as where infrastructure and easements and public infrastructure lie? That's just more for me, but
Great question, Carter. Yeah. So typically we would coordinate, and some of that stuff is true engineering, right?
Yeah.
So we have a great relationship with LJA Engineering. We've
Yep.
partnered on a bunch of projects with them across
Great bunch of guys and gals. Yeah.
And like LJA has an incredible engineering GIS platform that's used for that stuff.
Okay.
So like where your easements are, because we're not an engineering firm
Yeah.
in that way, we're not going to certify that, but LJA or an engineering firm would take care of that. But what we've done is anywhere you have GIS mapping that's done for engineering, it talks to our maps, which are far more consumer focused in that they look beautiful. They're designed to communicate all the things about a community to make it special, but they're also engineering level accurate. And so what we're doing is sharing that information across. And so Carter, it's like, how do you get in the computer? We actually get the files right from the engineers. We put it in the computer.
Yeah.
We do our overlay that makes it 3D and beautiful and all that stuff. And then it lives in connection with your engineering files so that you're not having to update the marketing and then update the engineering map. Those two things should be consistent across each other. And I think that's the beauty of the relationship. And, we're not trying to set ourselves up as like, we're going to do everything engineering. We don't have that capability. We're not ever going to. But there should be a connection there that results in not disparate data, but one unified source of truth that you work with partners to address.
And that's one of the questions that I have are what are the different layers that you can add to XO? Here again, we're really focused on the consumer experience, I guess, if I can say that. However, the land guy may go, well, geez, where is that manhole or where is that easement? And do they have the ability to start peeling back on the onion to get that type of information? Maybe you could
One of
just
the
give our
things we
listeners a
are
little bit.
working towards, Carter, is that exact thing, especially from a GIS perspective, pure play. What I mean by that is imagine if you're a community developer that is, instead of having to drive through your community at large to take pictures of what it looks like with houses on the ground, spec homes, would-be model homes and such, you can do it from the palm of your hand, whether that's an iPad or an iPhone. So you have this interactive map that is all survey based
Yeah,
in real time. And instead of you actually having a large, let's say 11 by 14 CAD map where you're going through and
yeah,
notating it, you can do it in real time. And when you're doing it in real time in your device, the click of the thumb would go back to whatever data source you're using. So there's a reference point, right? That's the other thing, right?
yeah,
It's a lot of times we do things in ways that when we say disparate data, what we mean by that is it puts data in these different silos that are not connected,
yeah,
right? And that is our category, is that we have so many organizations that store data, but they realize that this silo and that silo don't talk to each other. So now I have to log into a whole different environment to understand what it is that we wanted to learn about our business. What we do is we are able to centralize all that. So all the things that you do across the work track are
uh-huh,
all single source of truth. And that's where the XO is so spectacular, is you can have this sort of dashboard that allows you to understand performatively what's happening in your business through the kind of the click or a toggle, if
yeah.
you
Amazing. I mean, I just think it's fantastic.
will.
So you started off with XO, but you have a lot of other products. Yeah, you have
Do
the
too many.
Explorer, the Lot Vault.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just mention some of the products that you have, what
Yeah,
they do, and maybe the history on because any time I see a new product, I assume there was friction that you had because you're doing SaaS. Somebody said, John, Phil, could you solve this problem for me? And if
absolutely.
one has it, they all have it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I found.
Well said. Carter, I will tell you part of the genesis of the business and what Phil and I have whiteboarded for 6 years is the ability to have, we don't think it's linear, but just for this kind of example,
Yeah,
the ability of understanding what happens at the land and lot level all the way to the resident lifestyle experience. And if we can have a data platform that sees that entire process, right, which really is cyclical,
yeah,
it allows us as a company to be best in class of providing to our other present and future clients because we have an understanding and expertise on what data looks like from that journey from raw land and data and lots all the way to the living resident. And if you were to take that and follow that business rhythm across our products, the origin of those products follows that line.
yep,
And so the next product kind of within the XO is the Explore map function, which to your point, Carter, in and around this idea of like a topo table, our Explorer GIS maps are the best
yeah,
in the world. I don't, and I say that with absolute sincerity. There are not maps in the marketplace that can do what our maps can do, bar none. We have a really remarkable chassis and relationship with Mapbox that allows us to build things that are world class, that are experiential, that are also accurate and in real
mhm,
time. So put that to the side. And that's sort of a kind of a nice kind of subset of the XO. The other two products that I think we should talk about today that are most important is Customer Blueprint,
mhm,
which is what we believe will be the best resident lifestyle app in master plan community development because what it does is it centralizes the experience in the palm of your hand. The challenge with other aspiring resident apps today is that they do one thing really well, but not everything you
yeah,
need really well. An
yeah,
example of that is you're still going to have to log into your HOA app to pay your HOA fee. You're still going to have to log into maybe a community app that'll help you understand programming. You're still
mhm,
going to have to use another thing to be able to access the amenity center or schedule a tea time. Imagine if all those three things were in a singular app that
yeah,
allows the resident to have a best in class experience. So that is Customer Blueprint. We call it Customer Blueprint because we want the developer or the community manager to set the tone. It's a white labeled app and it allows them to call it what they want and they can bring it to the
yep,
marketplace. And we have it today and it's working and it's beautiful. But because we're talking to you today, Carter, I
yeah,
think really having us talk about the latest product,
yep,
which we're most proud of, which has had the second most investment next to the XO, is a product called Lot Vault. And I'm going to let Phil, because it's sort of Phil's brainchild,
okay,
really about Lot Vault when it comes to the world of land banking. So
That
Phil,
Yeah.
take it away, Phil. Let's hear about lot vault.
Well, and Carter, you're very familiar with this area, so I won't belabor the kind of evolution of land banking
Yeah,
and how important it's become to the industry. But, I would say we've really seen an explosion in the last couple of years here of land banking as kind of like a thing that just a few people knew about and
yeah,
people were doing into maybe one of the most important sort of board level strategy questions that builders are answering.
yep,
That, hey, how can we rethink the way that we approach this asset as a company?
yep,
How can we get towards a just-in-time land delivery model in a way that provides a great investment vehicle for capital partners, but also provides a mechanism for builders to de-risk
yep,
uh, and focus on what they're best at,
yeah,
right? Which is identifying opportunities and then building houses
yeah,
on that land. And so about 2.5 years ago, John and I ended up working very closely with Kennedy Lewis Investment Management
mhm,
uh, to look at this problem and say, okay, there is a challenge here in that there's hundreds of millions to billions of dollars in capital flowing through these deals, but it's being managed literally on spreadsheets,
yeah,
which is, creating efficiency issues with people, right? All these
yep,
organizations want to run people light.
yep,
They don't want to hire a million analysts to do this work. They want to run very quickly, very fast, but there's so much transaction volume going through these things. We're making mistakes
yeah,
or we don't have a point of view, right? As projects go from 25 projects to 65 projects to 250 projects to 500 projects, all of a sudden you have a massive scale problem. And potentially, again, remembering the scale of the money happening here,
yep,
you create risk profile issues of like, if you don't know what's happening, um, my God, you could get yourself in real trouble, which the real estate industry has never experienced
yeah,
before. Am I right? Um, so we really started there, kind of taking the banking lens on it
yeah,
of, hey, how does a land banker manage their portfolio of builders? Um, the reality though is that the bankers like kind of have this process relatively figured out. It's really the builders where the problem is. And Carter, I'm going to call back to what you said before, the divisions.
yeah,
Like dozens of divisions in many cases. Those divisions are all doing this a little bit differently.
yep,
And, my God, you talk about the scale of some of these guys like a Lennar,
yep,
what they're managing and what they're doing is hugely complex. And full credit to the teams there,
yeah,
like Scott Shipley and Casey Davis on that side of the house. Uh, they've really led the charge in terms of thinking about this programmatically.
yeah,
I think what we discovered was no matter how programmatically you think about a process that's as important and huge as this is,
yeah,
you're going to need technology to help you do that in the right way. And that's really what Lot Vault is all about.
yeah,
It's standardize all of this. So how do you think about project and portfolio management? How do you think about managing the details? Every single one of these land banking projects has a huge number of documents and pieces to it. It phases out, in some cases, thousands of lots. There's pricing, there's escalator fees, there's a million different things that have to be kept track of that are unique in some cases to a division, that are unique across capital partners, that are unique to specific deals.
yep.
It's perfectly set up, Carter,
And
for what
and
we
so let
do.
me let me just geek out on this a little bit. So you're right. All the public builders are going to Landlight. Lennar just transferred all of their assets, and I'm not, to Milrose, and it's being managed by Kennedy Lewis, and so and I just think I'm putting on my CPA hat of just okay, we're transferring all of these records over to this division, run with it, and. And so in lot vault, we have all of these lot banking contracts. All of them are different. Some of them are kind of sort of the same, but they're all different. Do we have all of the support documentation by deal? Do we have all of the takedown schedules by, is
Yep.
all of the information in Lot Vault that you can access with the click?
100%, Carter. Every single one of them. You can click in there. You can see where you are in that takedown schedule. You can see what's upcoming
Mhm.
across the different scheduled takedown dates. Go ahead, John.
Well, I'm sorry, but Carter, that's why the lot vault is really purpose built for home builders.
Yep.
Because you imagine, as you're a home builder, big or small, you're going to work with multiple land banks,
Yep.
but your process needs to be dialed to ensure the land banks
Yep.
have a better sort of efficiency flow of both communication and just clear financial kind of prudence.
Yeah.
That's where lot vault really has become wonderful and really sort of that key record for a home builder.
Yeah.
And it's great learning for me until the last 2.5 years in that way.
And then does it get rolled up in some sort of dashboard? Yeah, and
Oh,
then you
yeah,
can
For sure.
print out all
Yep.
sorts of, because I had experience building software related to tracking reimbursements for special districts. The
Sure.
one thing I found out is I am not a software guy. And
Sure.
everybody wanted something different, and it was
Oh,
just
yeah.
maddening, so my hats are off to you guys. And so I would imagine with this technology that's always getting better, always getting updated, a central point of truth that it automates some of this process, that you should be able to do this with a lot less staff, a lot more efficiently.
That's
To,
the goal. I mean, that's certainly the goal, right? I mean, I think
uh-huh.
when we speak with any of the home builders around, I mean, that's a big part of it. Is about efficiency. It's about less staff. The beauty for us is that we say we've done this for 2.5 years. A lot of the core logic
Yeah.
for lot vault comes from the XO. So
Yeah.
this idea of disparate data systems and workflows coming together to create outputs that folks can use to build efficiencies is literally the XO. And so it kind of gave us a head start in being able to build out Lot Vault. And I
Yeah.
think it's why Lot Vault has gotten so big so quickly. Whereas I would tell you the XO really took 5 years to get right,
Mhm. Yeah.
still evolving. We got Lot Vault, in market, and working with Lennar has been a gift because
Yeah.
it's been such an incredible journey with them. And they're so great. Mr. Miller talks a lot about being a technology company first. And we feel that working with not just Scott Shipley on the NLF side, National Land
Yeah.
Finance, but
Yeah.
Scott Bradley, their CTO. I mean, they're just a great group of people. And
Yeah.
you have that, you can build some really cool things together, if that makes sense, Carter.
Yeah. No, no, it really does. And let's talk a little bit. So I see all this data you guys are collecting. You're improving experiences either for the consumer, for the land guys, the marketing folks, lot bankers, home builders. It's just an incredible amount of data. How is AI, if I can use that term, playing a role, or is it playing a role right now in what you're doing? Will it play a role? So if you wanted to ask questions of this data, I mean, here again, I'm getting really technical now.
No,
You
yeah, we'll
guys are
get.
probably amazed by my questions.
No, your questions are very good and they're found. So let's talk about it. So the way that you get all of your first party data in the right position first is you use something what's called a data warehouse.
Mhm.
So today our company works with a data warehouse that allows all of that data to become standardized. The great misnomer, especially in our industry, for the adoption of AI to work is that in order for a large language model to be correct for business, you really have to have your data standardized.
Yep.
And until your data is standardized, you're really not going to be able to benefit from AI the way that you should. So let me just kind of start there. We do have in our product roadmap the ideas of kind of in bringing in AI in different parts of our roadmap that will accelerate things. An example
Yeah.
is the ability to accelerate onboarding for clients. If there was sort of an
Yeah.
automated method that allows data to be aggregated and imported so it can be ready to be used on the platform, that would save our company a tremendous amount of time in
Right.
implementation. So let's say it takes 12 weeks to be stood up on the XO. Maybe we could truncate that down to 6 or 8. That'd
Yeah.
be a big deal for both parties, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think AI could be very exciting. The other side of this, Phil and I feel very strongly about, is our organization aside, the category needs to get their mind right that AI is definitely here to stay. It's not the metaverse.
Yeah.
It's not blockchain, which is still yet to be understood. It
Yeah.
definitely is real. But the way in which I think folks should think about AI today, and Phil, correct me or add color here, it's really like the greatest analyst or the
Yeah.
greatest assistant money
Yeah.
can buy. It
Yeah.
can do things for you in an extension that just makes you faster, more thoughtful. I mean, Phil thinks I'm weird because I'll have like conversations with ChatGPT 4 and we go back and forth on things. I'm like, this is what Chat said. And Phil's like, dude. But I digress. Phil, any other color you want to add for?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think number one, I think we set a 2025 record for a technology podcast by waiting 45 minutes to talk about AI. So I'm
Yeah.
happy with that. I think the reality, Carter, and Satya Nadella came out and talked a little bit about this, and no one's more heavily invested in AI than Microsoft. And basically what he said was, there's not a lot of like applications today where AI is adding a massive amount of value to corporations.
Yeah.
But if you're not investing in figuring out how to use it and the foundations that are going to be important in the future, you've already lost.
Yeah.
It's basically what he said. And I think very much about that in our industry. Like we use AI as a company really extensively. Not only John and me at sort of the executive level, but our engineers and our R&D team uses it for coding. All that stuff has made us a lot more efficient. I think for our clients, though, we're not out there, like we haven't yet named and released a chat bot that's wrong 60% of the time. So applause.
Yeah.
The companies that have done that.
Yeah.
But like Carter, the reality is if you don't have good data and you're not investing in the foundation, and this is what every company who's leading in AI is saying right now, is get your data right. Because if your data is not right, you're not going to be able to take advantage of all this great stuff that is coming, even the stuff that is here today. And so for me, that's why all of our products have this data bent of like, how do you get your data? Whether it's Lot Vault is all about how do you consolidate these tens of thousands of lots of data.
I got it.
Sorry,
I get fired up on this subject. Carter, one thing I want to share with you. One good analog to think about is Zonda's new home source. And what has happened there, because a private listing services has the ability to standardize data and be ready for AI way faster than MLS will ever be. Right. I just did a quick post yesterday on LinkedIn about this. There's over 500 MLSs across the country. And in some states, there are a half a dozen or more where builders are inputting data. The challenge is that if you want to use AI to automate listing services or to do like prompts or query filters on price points or square footage and things that are faster, right? You've got to ensure the data is standardized. A private listing services, what Jeff Myers and the team at Zonda are doing, is savvy because it allows them to position themselves for AI much faster than what MLS could ever do. It's like food for thought.
Well, and what we do, whether we're working on entitlements or issuing bonds, we just beat into our staff and our professionals. You have to get the right data, meaning the document has to be signed, it has to be recorded, it has to be published. I mean, garbage in, garbage out. It always starts with the data. And then, in Excel, we can sort things, we highest to lowest, alphabetically. And that's really the way we look at AI. If it's something that we can query to get the information, the data that we need to be able to move a transaction forward, that's really what's helpful. And we're dabbling in it, but really we're not planning on it replacing our staff and our thinking.
I think we agree with that thinking completely. That's smart.
I think it's an augmentation, right, Carter? It's like in my mind, the industries that are going to suffer are the industries that are hugely people dependent and they have people doing highly repetitive research-based tasks. Like those are things that AI does incredibly well already. I think the way that we view it is that it really should augment the capabilities, the creativity. It should take things off your plate. Like, hey, you want to be able to check like whether this deal has all the right things in place and everything's been signed. We do that almost right now. Like that's a perfect job for an AI agent for your team so that they can focus on getting the next deal or negotiating, better terms over here. And so I think for us, Carter, that's very much how we view it in all of our products is get that baseline right. And then AI will layer in over the next 18 months around, on land banking, it's like, how do you identify projects that are at risk versus projects that are running ahead?
Yep.
How do you help prioritize things in the pipeline so
Yep.
that you put your focus on the things most likely to close and you're able to get a better point of view on things that will not? How do you increase that return and pricing where it's appropriate based on not only your own data, but third-party data? XO, it's all about, how do you help make sure these processes that today take a lot of manual effort are removed so that you're having more conversations about how the community is coming to life. How do you activate it? Customer blueprint. It's what are your preferences? What do you do? How do you provide a better experience to these folks based on what you know about them from the data? And I think that's all there for the taking. But if you don't have the right data, it will suck and it will be a bad experience.
And to make sure we have a great experience and everything's changed, everything's going tech, everything is ease of convenience and getting that information in a timely manner. If somebody's got a project, hey, I've got 2,000 acres in Harris County, we're starting to plan it. We're developing our theming, our marketing. We want to use XO. So I'm coming to you and going, John, Phil, what do we do next? Because I want to be ready. Here's where we're at. How do people come to you, and when is the appropriate time for them to come to you to say, I want to start to implement the whole suite, the XO, customer blueprint, et cetera. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Lot Vault as a separate experience. But
Carter, on the XO, I would tell you sooner is always better, right? For us to understand kind of pre-phase, the beginning of phase one, who your production home builders are, what does kind of the elevation suite look like? What is it that they're selling? We always like to start with our Explorer map first to really tell the story of the place. I know we're not placemakers, but we like to consider ourselves placemakers because we visualize the community of what's there and what's to come. So that's typically where we start. And usually it's in the beginning phase, but certainly if you're a portfolio developer that has multiple projects, in and around, whether it's Dallas-Fort Worth or other kind of key metros, we can start at any side. But in a dream, it is brand new, break ground, 6 to 9 months out. That's our favorite kind of MPC developer to start with.
Great. And then Phil, I'm going to throw it over to you. What about Lot Vault? If I'm a lot or land
Carter,
banker.
I think it's sort of any time for us. So Lot Vault scales very well. We do it on kind of a project by project basis. So even if you got 10 projects, it scales very well. I think the ideal for us, Carter, and we've seen this in several places, is like I think every builder is starting to think, oh my God, this is a non-negotiable for my strategy. But we don't have the organizational infrastructure right now. Maybe we have a guy who sits centrally, but that guy is usually coordinating across divisions. We're actually in, right, for that. Like, we'll not only be the technology, but we'll help with some of the process pieces and the change management around standardizing that. And so I think for us, Carter, like almost every builder has some level of land banking focus today. And we're able to either take like a large organization that's already doing it and convert it over, or we're able to be kind of part of the journey, honestly, from nascent through to more industrialized process. And I think that's part of the beauty of how Lot Vault has been set up, is that we knew that was going to be the case. And it is very flexible to what you need as an organization. So, in our opinion, earlier the better, because if you start standardizing and doing it on a system when you're 25 to 40 projects, it's much easier when you're 300 projects. But we're pretty flexible in that way in terms of how it gets set up.
That's great. What has been your biggest learning experience? And we're getting towards the end here, and I want to be cognizant of your time, and I want to thank you very much. But I always like finding out about what people's learning experiences are, what they would do differently if they had the opportunity.
I'm going to answer this more in a general way because I think, Carter, you and Greg go way back. And I think about how, Land Advisors Organization, for example, is almost 38 years old, maybe almost 40 years old now. And I think what is sometimes misunderstood is how difficult, sincerely difficult entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that I would do differently.
Yeah.
I do think one of the things that I would tell other like-minded entrepreneurs that are not even in our space, but any space,
Hmm.
is work on yourself as much as work on your business.
Yeah.
And in many ways, as you know, there's a lot of trials and tribulations you deal with in leadership where you're very much sandwiched between your clients, your shareholders, your staff, and all the things you want to do. And that's not even counting all the personal things, your spouse, your children, and other things. And I think it's really important that earlier on, I wish I understood to work on myself more. When I
Yeah.
say that, it's things like fitness, it's things like diet, sleep,
Yep.
balance. Those things make you a better entrepreneur. And I think I'm learning that now, 6 years in,
Yeah.
but I don't think you would know that in your first couple of years. So that's
Yeah.
my hot take.
Yep.
I got,
Bill.
I would echo John's, but I think there's a temptation when you're doing software and you're trying to
Mhm.
disrupt how an industry works
Yeah.
to feel like you're smarter. And it's like, no
Yeah.
one knows what they're doing except for me. And I think what John and I, certainly I've found, is that there are people in the industry who, even if they're not technologists, are incredibly smart and really driving forward innovation. And it's like, attach yourselves to those people, because
Yeah.
those are the people who really know what the problems in the industry are. And like Carter Vogel is one of these people for
Yeah.
me. Laura Cole at Lakewood Ranch, Craig
Yeah.
Collin and Jim Zaboral,
Yeah.
Scott Shipley has been one of these people. Um, you know, they it doesn't matter if they don't know technology, they know the problem in the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
And as people innovating in this space, having partners like that
Yeah.
is so important. Fred Balda is another one at
Yeah.
Hillwood, who, like, Fred is the same as you, Carter, in that Fred doesn't care about code. What Fred cares about
Yeah.
is outcomes and
Yep.
doing things the right way. And he's so open-minded. And I think, for me, that's been a lesson of, like, identify and stay very close to those people, because
Yeah.
that has been a huge part of, I think, John and my journey in doing this in the industry. And you can have the best tech, but if
Yeah.
it's do what people need, who cares?
Yeah. And John, I like what you said, and Phil, you as well, because we're all entrepreneurs. Some are in the software, some are in the finance, we're in real estate, and a lot of us that are we're entrepreneurs first, and I think we're all pretty much unemployable. Meaning,
Nice.
I was cutting grass, in high school and blowing snow in North Dakota. I always had some sort of business. And
Understood.
And it was always about, what can I do to be a service? What can I do to be a hero to my neighbors? What can I do? And anytime we find a problem, and we call it our client DOS, I'm taking that from Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach, but dangers, opportunities, and strengths. There's a potential business there. If enough people have that problem, or if enough people are looking to solve that opportunity or capture that opportunity.
Sure.
I think that's really what you guys have done. You've identified some inefficiencies, and what could we do better to be a service to our clients, the master plan developers, the home builders, and just all of the data, and bringing it together, and making the experience better. And you guys have just been awesome, and I've enjoyed watching you and participating in various conversations. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having us. It's been a great
Thank
morning to spend with you.
Yeah, and for all of our listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, I really encourage you to share it with your teams. And as part of our show notes, we're going to put links in to Cecilian Partners. I'll also leave contact information for John and Phil, so any of our listeners can get in touch with them directly. And gentlemen, would just like to say thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carter.
Thanks, guys.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Follow us wherever you find your podcast to never miss a new episode.